billion. I want to repeat that number. $51 billion in our budget goes to property tax cuts. That's over 20% of our total budget. You know, people sometimes don't understand when we say we're cutting school taxes, and that's what we're cutting, we actually are writing a check to the school in place of the taxes they would pay. So it's actually a budget item. It's an expense item. So we're sending money to the school districts so that taxpayers don't have to write those checks to the school districts. For seniors, if you're a senior and you're the average homeowner, you will not pay any more school taxes for the rest of your life. Why? Because we've increased your homestead exemption to $200,000. To put that in perspective, when I became Lieutenant Governor in 2015, and I've always been the driving force on the homestead exemption, it's the best way to cut property taxes, and it's guaranteed in the Constitution, can never be taken away from you. It was $15,000. 10 years ago, your homestead exemption was $15,000 for everyone. And then we raised it to 25, then we went to 40, we went to 100 last year, and now 200 for seniors. If you're under 65 and you're a homeowner, your homestead exemption now is $140,000. So that means your school taxes will be cut about 50% from what you were paying just 5 years ago. So that's a big issue. Now, take the property tax cuts, that goes to the school districts. So their funding doesn't go down, we're just paying in place of the homeowners. On top of that, we added $8.5 billion this year to public education in a different way than we've ever done before. And it was bipartisan, almost unanimous of what we've done, Republican, Democrat. We said we're not sending all the money to superintendents anymore. We have great superintendents, but we think it should go in separate buckets because we are sending taxpayer money that we collect back to the schools, and we want to have a stronger say from the legislative viewpoint on how those dollars are spent. So half of all the new money for public education this time goes to teachers. In fact, I know they were happy with it because we didn't have hardly any, if any, calls from a teachers association, teachers, because they see their salaries going up. To give you a comparison, about 2017, the average teacher salary in Texas was $54,000. After this legislative session, the average will be $69,000 for teachers and more on incentive programs. Because the teacher is the most valuable person in the classroom. If we want to have the best public education system in the country and in the world, we have to have the best teachers. Pay them like professionals, not just as a job, and attract more to the profession. Second bucket, we put money in there for the people who don't teach, but they're important to the school day. That's the bus drivers, cafeteria workers, maintenance workers, and the infrastructure within the school system. We created a bucket of nearly $1 billion for kids with special needs and another bucket for school security. In other words, we're funding the schools in the normal formula funding. They get paid per student. But all the additional money, we're directing it instead of one person in the administration directing how it's spent. And then, of course, school choice. I passed school choice 5 times. Never could get a vote in the House. This time we passed it out of the House. It's the biggest launch ever in the history of the world. $1 billion for 100,000 students that the parents will be able to apply beginning sometime late next spring for the 2026 school year because we have to set up that program. Something else that's happening around schools that I think people in this area and all across Texas care about, and that's getting the wokeness out of our schools. Let's focus on education and not wokeness. And let's bring values back into our schools. We passed Senate Bill 10, which puts the 10 Commandments back in our schools, in every classroom. Now, how does that happen? We're not making it an unfunded mandate for the schools, but they're required to put the 10 Commandments in every classroom if a church, an individual, a group brings them the 16 by 20, it's in the law, exactly how it has to be made. You bring it to the school, you deliver 100 of them, 10 of them, 20 of them, they must put it in every classroom. And Senate Bill 11 brings prayer back to public school in terms of giving students who want to pray that private time. I've always thought it was odd and troubling that we take our children and grandchildren to church and Sunday school on Sunday, but you can't talk about God Monday through Friday in our schools. So DEI is out of our school. Last year, of course, we stopped boys from playing girls' sports in Texas. The 10 Commandments, prayer, funding teachers more than ever. The biggest funding for schools, $8.5 billion. The biggest property tax cut for school taxes. And, of course, school choice. Big session on education. Next, the border. The border is secure. I said before President Trump won the election last November that on day one it would be secure because we were doing our job in Texas, but the Biden administration did not work with us. They worked against us, and over 15 million people were, or more, I say over, it could be as high as 20 million came into this country illegally. They were coming in by the thousands and thousands every day. Now maybe a couple of dozen or so try to come across the border illegally. Number three, infrastructure. So important to our state. We have put $5 billion more into expanding and strengthening the grid with more natural gas dispatchable plants. Renewables are fine, but we can't depend on wind and solar for all of our energy. So we're building more natural gas plants. We put over $3 billion into water because water will be one of our great challenges, quite frankly, in the decades ahead. So we have to make big investments in water. We put more money in, since I became Lieutenant Governor in 2015, into transportation, building roads, and the TxDOT. We've increased their funding in the last 10 years somewhere in the neighborhood of about $10 to $12 billion to keep up with our growing economy and the 1,500 people or so a day who continue to move here and all driving a car somewhere. I want to talk about another issue that's very important, and that's THC. A lot of discussion about it. A lot of people don't know about it. Let me tell you what THC is if you don't know. That's the ingredient in marijuana. And through a loophole in the hemp bill that was passed several years ago, companies, bad actors, dangerous people in terms of what they want to do to your kids and you as an adult, have been selling high potency marijuana through THC in these smoke and vape shops. When did I know it was a problem? When I looked at the stats last year or so, we have 1,100 McDonald's in Texas, roughly, 1,300 Starbucks, but we have over 8,000 smoke shops and vape shops. And where are they built? They're built around the schools, within 1,000 and 2,000 feet of our schools. The Poison Center reports THC-related calls are up 500%. Just last week, we had a school up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area where several students went to the hospital because they had been given gummies that were bought in a vape shop, smoke shop right near the school that was a very high content. We had a young man in Houston ate some of these THC-infused products from a smoke shop and went home and shot his mother 3 times in the chest. We had a 22-year-old young man whose mother testified he was so strung out on THC that he walked in front of a train in El Paso. Schizophrenia, paranoia, serious health issues, serious mental health issues, and we just have to get it out of here. That's why we banned it. On a bipartisan way, we banned THC. You don't know what's in the product. If I had it here and offered you, would you like to try something off the shelf? You shouldn't take it. You wouldn't take it if you're smart because you have no idea what's in it. So we're banning it and getting it away from our schools, because what the drug dealers from California, Mexico, Colorado want to do is they want to hook a whole population on drugs for the rest of their life. So a lot of things happened this session, and it's been a great session, the most conservative session ever, and we're proud of the work that we did. Let me open up for questions. I'm sure you have a few. Yes, ma'am. I can see you were anxious.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm Danielle Tavarkla from Channel 12. I have
Hi.
a question. So SB3, like you talked
Yes.
about, you're very passionate about
Yes.
it. Greg Abbott is waiting for him to sign it or not. What do you think he might be doing?
My job is to pass the bills that I know are important, and then he'll decide to sign them or not sign them. I know where his heart is on this issue. Look, in my 17 years in office, I've never felt more passionate about any issue. When you see 8,000 to 9,000 shops open up in 3 years, these aren't small mom and pop businesses. You know, these people behind this business, it's poisoning our kids. They're trying, well, it's about small business. No, 4,000 people, that's how many permits were given, and they've opened multiple stores. They didn't wake up one morning and say, you know, I've got a drug connection, I think down in Mexico or California. I think I'll open up a smoke shop today. And all the smoke shops look alike, and they're all built in the same places, and all these leases were signed, and all the products are the same. No, there are probably 3 or 4 big cannabis dealers behind all of this, infiltrating our state with products that aren't even allowed in some of their states. So it's not about that. It's about bad actors who are absolutely destroying lives. And the testimony was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking that we had. Law enforcement, as the Tomball police chief said at the press conference, these smoke shops are nothing but a drug deal in public. You know, in essence, the state of Texas, through a loophole in the law, have backed into legalizing marijuana in the state. But what makes it even worse is that no one knows how potent it is. There was an article just last week. This is not the marijuana that you smoked at Woodstock or when you were growing up. This is 4 or 5 times more powerful, and that's why it's destroying young people. So this is important. I've never been more committed because it could destroy an entire generation. Next question.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Embu Mukunga.
Hey.
I'm with the Beaumont Enterprise here.
Thanks for coming.
I know that this is a passionate topic of yours. I have been doing a little bit of research. I know you have a background in radio.
Yes, sir.
So you got your chops and started. And from radio to now, you're kind of the king of the hill in terms of people referring to your work over in Austin. You have 40 legislative priorities that you
Yes, sir.
expressed, but many of those didn't come without cost. There are multiple staunch conservatives in media, conservatives in industry across the state,
Right,
who have really said that there's a wedge you're drawing between them and Trump, President Trump and the federal administration.
On what
There's
issue?
a wedge of issues such as school choice, such as rural Republican counties that feel as if there's going to be a distinction drawn between the funding that they receive in their local school, where the school's a kind of lifeblood of a small town, as well as also issues such as conservative talk show, conservative punditry regarding THC and the usage of people in small communities that they hear from. So we're just trying to figure out, how do you plan on smoothing those rough edges?
Well, there are no rough edges. First of all, the people telling you there's a difference between me and the president, his agenda includes school choice. I was invited to the White House.
The agenda also includes
No.
not penalizing.
Okay, let me finish. Okay, let me finish. Let me finish.
Yeah, of course.
His agenda is to pass school choice, and we are the leader in passing school choice, and I was one of 12 people invited to have lunch with the president, so no difference there. No one wants to legalize drugs in America, and that's what's happened in Texas through the back door. No difference there. I don't know what school funding. Look, this whole idea that schools aren't funded, I'm tired of it, quite frankly, because it's just not true. The only people who were against the $8.5 billion that we put in school funding this session, $8.5 billion, that's a record. I just want to put, that's probably bigger than the whole budget of Oklahoma, just for the whole state. $8.5 billion. Again, half of it going to teachers, because I'm tired of administration offices not understanding that the most valuable person they have is the teacher.
Would you say Representative Drew Darby from San Angelo is an administrative officer?
I don't, look.
I went to school in San Angelo. He's been on the record that he was strong-armed in voting for that bill.
For school choice? Look, I don't work in the House, I work in the Senate. I don't strong-arm anybody in the House. He voted for school choice, you ought to stand up and be proud.
So do you deny that there was strong-arming in any capacity that led to the bill being passed?
I don't even know where your questions are going with this strong-arming. Look, I'm just answering your question. People have a decision in the Senate and the House how they want to vote. Okay? He voted for school choice, and if he's now going out and saying he was strong-armed, and he tried to kill it last session, by the way. In fact, he did kill it last session. So he voted for it this session, now he's walking back. That's up to him. I'm not, there are 150 House members. I don't even know Drew that well, quite frankly, but no one was strong-armed into voting for anything. It was great policy supported by Republican voters, and the majority of Texans want school choice. Real simple. Yes.
Question.
Last question?
Okay, so I got one more.
Does somebody else have
Anyone have a question?
No one else, so I'm just going to go ahead, yeah, so,
Okay.
thank you so much for your answers, really appreciate your time.
Sure,
Coming
sure.
up Southeast Texas,
Yeah.
Texas, it's
Yeah.
obviously a huge area that.
I love East Texas. I love Beaumont. It's great. And by the way, Senator Nichols and Senator Creighton, who both represent this area, do one incredible job. In fact, Brandon Creighton, your senator from this area, was a strong, he carried the school choice bill, he carried the school funding bill, and a lot of other bills.
Certainly, yeah, and of course, it's appreciated by those representatives,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And there's obviously that pro-business element that runs through a lot of what you guys have emphasized.
Absolutely.
But it certainly seems like you've triangulated yourself in opposition to a lot of industries here. So we're looking at a roughly 50,000 industry-wide across the state, many of those being here in Southeast Texas that are going to be shut down. You said you're not about.
I don't even know what you're, sir, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, just finish the question. I'm almost done. I promise. Sure. You're not about.
No, you're making statements. Go ahead.
So,
But go ahead.
With that being said, like, what is the path forward? You say for
what?
dozens of businesses and hundreds of livelihoods here that are going to be shut down.
Oh,
if many of your legislative
But,
decisions are
by
swept
what?
through.
By what?
By your legislative.
By what? Name one.
You know your legislative priorities. Do you not?
No. Name one but this has been the most pro-business session ever. We raised the business inventory tax from $2,500 to $125 million. We've made $5 billion in investments in building new natural gas plants, $5 billion, $3.5 billion in water. Again, billions of dollars in roads. Who do you think?
So do you deny that there's going to be businesses shut down if the legislative agenda you've laid out?
There's no legislative agenda that Greg Abbott has signed, or that we passed, or that what?
That you brought to his desk, of course. You can't speak for Greg Abbott. I understand.
Okay. There's no, I have no, sir, I'm sorry, I just have no idea where you're coming from. Everyone in business in Texas recognizes we've been the job-creating leader in the country for a decade. That's why companies are moving here. That's why we have a Texas stock exchange.
There's companies that have moved here that have told me directly that if priorities that you laid out.
And what are they?
They're going to shut
And
down.
well, just tell me what they are. You haven't named one yet.
Yeah. No, I've named.
Well, yeah, one more. Name one yet. Name one yet.
When I discussed Senate Bill 3, of course, when I discussed your legislation.
We have great support from so you think business is against school choice? It sounds like,
I said there are businesses that have talked to me.
okay, well, I'm glad those businesses talked to you because it's been wildly supported by businesses.
So they don't, is what you're saying?
Okay. Sir, I'm not going to argue with you anymore. You're naming unnamed companies, anonymous companies that told you something about something.
There's one name I can give you.
Okay.
Here in Southeast Texas.
Okay. All I'm telling you is we are the most pro-business state in the country. We will continue to be the most pro-business state, and that's why Fortune 500 companies and everyone else is moving to Texas, not because of what one person told you about they didn't like school choice. So thank you very much. Thank you all. I appreciate you coming out.
Just a quick check, does that include like other businesses that are closing down?
Here we go, guys.